In 1928, a pound of cemented tungsten carbide cost $48. It was the hardest cutting material in industrial production, capable of machining steel at speeds that would destroy any high-speed steel bit in seconds. Recognizing its massive potential, America's General Electric (GE) and Germany's Friedrich Krupp joined forces. They signed a 15-year pact to control every single gram of this material on Earth. The result? Within a few years, the price of a pound of carbide skyrocketed to $453. Yet the actual production cost was a mere 6 to 12 cents per gram. They were charging $1 per gram, a markup somewhere between 8 and 16 times the actual cost of manufacturing. Because of the corporate greed of these two giants, machine shops across America were stuck using outdated high-speed steel, unable to afford the revolutionary carbide. But this monopoly wouldn't last forever. A metallurgist from the small town of Latrobe, Pennsylvania, invented a formula they couldn't patent their way around. Raised by metallurgy, Philip M. McKenna. The man who broke this international monopoly was Philip Murray McKenna. Born on June 16, 1897 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he grew up in a household where metallurgy was less of a profession and closer to a religion. His grandfather, Robert McKenna, was an Irish coppersmith who arrived in Pittsburgh in 1832 and founded the McKenna Brothers Brass Company. Philip's father, Alexander G. McKenna, was an alloy steel pioneer who developed an 18% tungsten tool steel around the turn of the century, raising cutting speeds from 26 feet per minute to a staggering 99 feet per minute. Growing up in this environment, a 7-year-old Philip was already stoking his father's blacksmith forge and watching drill steels undergo heat treatment. By 15, he was working alongside chemists, and by 1915, at just 18 years old, he held 2 registered patents, one for extracting tungsten from ores and another for separating cobalt from nickel. He was a professional chemist before he was even old enough to vote. He later attended George Washington University, studying at night while researching by day, graduating with a bachelor's degree in 1921. He also later attended Columbia University. The birth of Kennametal and the war against the cartel. In 1910, the McKenna family organized the Vanadium Alloy Steel Company, known as Vasco. In 1928, Philip moved there to serve as Vasco's research director. After a decade of experimenting with cemented carbide compositions to solve America's machining bottlenecks, he filed a patent in December 1937 for a novel tungsten-titanium carbide alloy. It was granted on April 5, 1938 as U.S. Patent 2113353. Philip called this near-diamond-hard material Kennametal. Following a bitter falling out over mismanagement at Vasco, Philip resigned. In September 1938, he started the McKenna Metals Company as a sole proprietorship with about a dozen employees and roughly $30,000 in first-year sales. Latrobe was a booming center for alloy steel production, but the global market Philip entered was anything but free. It was completely controlled by the GE Krupp cartel. Because Philip's new composition was different enough to bypass their patent portfolio entirely, the cartel panicked. They tried to pressure, intimidate, and absorb him into licensing agreements, but McKenna refused to back down. By April 1942, the artificial shortage caused by the monopoly drew the attention of the U.S. Senate Patents Committee. The Department of Justice launched an antitrust prosecution against GE and Carballoy, GE's subsidiary. In 1948, Chief Judge John C. Knox found them guilty of fixing prices and boycotting competitors. Though the fines were a mere slap in the wrist, the international monopoly was broken, and the market Philip had forced open was legally free. World War II and the rise of Kennametal. In 1940, Philip brought in his cousin Alex and his brother Donald as partners. With the onset of World War II, a massive international order arrived through the Lend-Lease Agreement in 1941, followed by contracts from the Chrysler Tank Arsenal and the U.S. Steel Export Company. Sales surged to $999,000 by the end of fiscal year 1941. During the war, Kennametal's carbide tools became critical to the Allied war effort. Machining hardened steel for tank treads, aircraft engines, and artillery barrels required tools that could withstand brutal around-the-clock shifts. Beyond cutting tools, Kennametal developed a process to manufacture tungsten carbide penetrators, the hardened outer cores of armor-piercing shells engineered to punch straight through heavy German tanks. In 1943, Philip incorporated the company as Kennametal Inc., with revenues reaching $7.5 million. The Kendex system and the modern machining revolution. When the war ended in 1945, defense contracts vanished overnight. However, in 1946, Kennametal introduced an innovation that changed the workflow of every machine shop forever: the Kendex system, a line of mechanically held, indexable carbide inserts. The old problem: previously, carbide cutting tips were brazed or welded onto steel shanks. When the edge wore out, the tool had to be removed, sent to a bench grinder, and carefully sharpened by hand. This caused machine downtime, altered the tool's precise cutting geometry, and risked cracking the carbide from thermal stress. The solution? With the Kendex system, a machinist could simply loosen a clamp screw, rotate or index the insert to a fresh, factory-ground cutting edge, tighten it, and resume cutting in under a minute. Once all edges were worn, the insert was thrown away and replaced. Every indexable tooling system used in modern manufacturing today, from simple lathe turning to complex CNC milling, descends directly from this concept. International expansion and historical irony. The Korean War brought Kennametal back into defense manufacturing, pushing annual sales to $24 million by 1954. In 1958, the company created the Kennametal Overseas Corporation to expand into European markets that had once been Krupp's exclusive territory. Philip McKenna passed away on August 16, 1969, at the age of 72. Outside the lab, he had been a passionate advocate for monetary policy, serving as the national chairman of the Gold Standard League. His signature belief was, when it comes to making new and useful things, we are just starting to realize the possibilities. Following his death, his cousin Alex became CEO, and his brother Donald became chairman. In August 2002, Kennametal completed a historic $170 million acquisition of the Whittier Group from Cincinnati Millicron. In a beautiful twist of historical irony, the Whittier brand, derived from the phrase "wie Diamant," meaning like diamond, was originally created and trademarked in 1926 by Friedrich Krupp AG, the very cartel that had tried to crush Philip McKenna decades earlier. Technical diversification and labor conflicts. Kennametal continued to grow by acquiring specialized technologies. In 2005, acquired the Extrude Hone Corporation for $137 million. They pioneered abrasive flow machining, or AFM, a process where a gritty, putty-like polymer is pumped through internal passages under immense pressure to polish internal cooling holes in turbine blades and fuel injectors to a mirror finish. Kennametal divested Extrude Hone in 2015. In 2012, acquired the Deloro Stellite Group for €277 million, bringing in a legacy of cobalt-chromium superalloys engineered to resist extreme heat and abrasion. However, rapid global expansion brought domestic challenges. In 2017, attempts to reduce wages and overtime at the historic Deloro Stellite plant in Belleville, Ontario, led to a high-profile labor strike, ending decades of labor peace. Similarly, labor disputes over healthcare and overtime hit the Greenfield, Massachusetts plant in 2019, ultimately leading to the facility's permanent closure in 2025. Furthermore, the company had to reckon with past environmental impacts. In 2007, Kennametal, alongside GE and Sandvik, were held liable for millions of dollars in cleanup costs at the Lee Tungsten Superfund site in New York, where hazardous and radioactive waste had been improperly disposed of in the late 19th century. The future: 3D printing and sustainability. Learning from past environmental challenges, Kennametal aggressively pivoted its corporate image. By 2026, the company secured a spot on Newsweek's list of America's most responsible companies for 5 consecutive years. Today, they heavily emphasize sustainability by running massive carbide recycling programs, reclaiming used inserts to reduce dependency on raw mining. Kennametal is also shaping the future of electric vehicles, or EVs, through additive manufacturing, or 3D printing. By 3D printing complex components out of advanced alloys, they have managed to reduce the weight of massive EV motor housing tools from over 25 kilograms down to just 10.5 kilograms while cutting machining cycle times in half. Thanks for watching. See you next video.